Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics with a really fun table topper project, totally beginner friendly that you can make in just a few hours. That's all great news. This is adorable fabric collection from Star Spangled by April Rosenthal. She is a Moda designer, and I just thought this was a almost a more happy patriotic. I liked seeing the flowers in there. And when I saw the cut loose press pattern easy patriotic table topper, I thought this is exactly what I'm hoping to see on my dining room table for the 4th of July celebration. And of course, next year in 2026, our 250th birthday, that is going to be a huge celebration. So why don't we get started early and make a lot of beautiful patriotic projects. Super beginner friendly. We're going to dive right into this. You can see this is all piecing. So right away, sizing, fresh blade in the rotary cutter, needle, good thread, seam guide, you know the drill. This is made easy because of strip piecing. So we're going to be grabbing these 3 fabrics, making some long width of fabric cuts, and strip piecing them together in a 5-inch finished by width of fabric section. I have already subcut many of my portions for my quilt, so I have just a little bit left over. But the lovely part about this being 5 inches is that I can grab for my perfect 5 and subcut that into 5-inch sections. I love mission specific rulers that are the exact size I'm trying to go for. If I don't have that, of course, I'll grab for any ruler I might have, and you're going to be subcutting 5-inch sections all the way down your strip piece unit. Each side of our project has 2 of those, so that'll be 2, 4, 6, 8 in total. So that is what we're going to be doing with our strip piece sections. Once we have that, and by the way, these are pressing away from the white. That instruction is inside our pattern, and that makes sense to me. I don't want to have any red or blue fabric potentially being seen here when I look at my white fabric. I've certainly had that happen in quilts before. So once you have your sections cut out, simply place 2 of them right side together. So a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And for that joining seam, we're going to press open for that seam. And that makes sense to just distribute that bulk. And let's give a good press right there. And for now, we'll make a total of 4 of those, this portion, and we'll set that aside because our pattern talks about using these a little bit later on during our final assembly. So you're just going to be completing 4 of those. So I'll just put that aside as we move on to looking at the center portion. This is where our focus is going to be. And let me show you what that block is going to look like so you know what we're going for. And that's this portion right here. So as we study that, what we see is actually that we have a center square, and these are just half square triangles, easy peasy. Our pattern is guiding us into cutting a 3 7/8 inch squares in order to make our half square triangles. At Shabby Fabrics, we like to upsize that 1/8 of an inch and just cut 4. So that's what we've done ahead of time. And that gives us the opportunity to oversize and square up, which is one of our favorite techniques here. And our sewing team does that really every single day. Every chance that we can upsize a little bit and trim up, the blocks just really dial in way more accurate. Our pattern shows you a diagram where they have drawn a straight line from corner to corner and then tracked a 1/4 inch on either side, right? So let me just demonstrate what is in the pattern here. And now you would take this to the sewing machine and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch up to the left and a 1/4 inch to the right as shown on the dashed line. Absolutely, you can do that. And that's how I did half square triangles for years. Well, I love that Creative Grid actually came out with a tool, and it's one of my top notions. I love this, that I know I am way more accurate sewing on drawn lines versus trying to track a 1/4 inch left or right of a drawn line. So if that's you and you're like, I'm in your camp, Jen, I'm way more accurate on a drawn line, You'll simply place your seam guide corner to corner, rotate your mat, and draw on either side. I'm using a friction pen that, of course, erases with heat. And now we will simply take this to our machine and sew directly on the line. Okay, our next step will simply have us cut corner to corner, and we'll be pressing toward the dark. Just be consistent about that, whether you're doing the gingham and the white with the stars or the blue. Just press to the dark. That's going to give us some beautiful interlocking seams a little bit later on when we do our assembly of that center block. Now remember that by cutting these to 4 inches instead of the 3 7/8, that gives us a chance to square up the fabric. And you're saying square up to what? You'll square this up to 3.5 because later when we do final assembly and this is sewn in, it'll finish at 3. So once again, I'm going to be grabbing for any mission specific ruler that I have that helps me really just dial that in. I'm placing this right on the seam, and my goal is to be able to trim up on all 4 sides. So if you are going to be taking this approach, don't sit that ruler down in a corner. Move that so that you have a little bit of fabric all the way around, giving you a chance to square up all 4 sides. Let me give it a turn. Obviously works fabulous with a spinning mat, but all square up rulers work beautifully with a spinning mat because I'm not lifting up the fabric. I'm not lifting up the block. I'm simply now turning around that block. And you'll square up all 4 of those in this color, and you'll do the other 4 in this corner. Now, we simply lay that out. Let's put this here. And I definitely encourage you to go ahead and lay out the block. I have tried to just take things to the sewing machine and think I'm going to remember when I get there that orientation. What do I end up doing? Grabbing for this thing. That's one of probably my other favorite sewing notions is the seam ripper. So I've learned, just lay out the block near the sewing machine. That way I do one more visual check before we start sewing everything together. And this has helped me know my seam ripper much less often. We visit less often than we used to, and I'm happy for that. Look at that. There we go. Let me make sure if this is correct now. This way, this way, this way, this way. Yes, we have it all correct. Now, very straightforward. Remember how I said we press to the dark? Look what happens when we place this right side together. This seam is going here, and this seam is going here, giving us a beautiful lock. We're still using patchwork pins. I'll talk about why I actually have 2 pin caddies out and how those pins look beefier and longer. That's because they are. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Right side together, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Of course, you're going to be doing that with all of these and pressing per the instructions or as you prefer. And of course, we'll just flip this over so you can see the pressing that we actually did. And you can see if you like that pressing, and you can follow that if you prefer. Pressing instructions in a pattern are really, for us, many times patterns don't even have pressing instructions. So just know that we very much take pressing quite seriously, because sometimes if we don't press thoughtfully, we might not get an interlocking seam when we could have. And definitely interlocking seams help with precision of alignment. So again, that's our pressing that we did. Let me get that out of the way. Remember how we had our strip piece units and we set those aside. It's now time to do something with those strip piece units. So down here, for example, where we have this, with our blue plaid, of course, we were very careful about cutting our blue out because this is now being cut on the bias, right? We had a square and we cut that on the 45, meaning this side is very, very stretchy. Let me show you that. But if you add a lot of sizing to your fabric, That will help stabilize that. So this, for example, we simply place these right side together, and notice this extension, that this portion. When I was a younger quilter, that really confused me. Why, when I work with triangles, is there a portion that extends beyond? And that's because of where the 1/4 inch is going to hit. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. And it looks like we actually sewed it to this side. Let me switch my site picture so this looks just like what I sewed here. You see how that part's extending? But look where it hits. This is where the 1/4 inch tracks in. And once it's pressed, let me press this. You will see why we had to have that extension. So that once pressed, it's as it should be, right? And then we just trim off our little dog ear. And then, of course, we're going to be adding this to the other side once again and pressing to the outside. So let's look at our pattern here. Our pattern is having us add our triangles to the top row and the bottom row. So for final assembly here, we have our center block, and of course we have a strip piece unit here, a strip piece unit here as shown that will be sewing together. And of course we have our top and bottom row with our triangles on both ends that we're sewing together to complete this unit. Now, in the pattern, they don't talk about actually adding batting or fusible fleece. We love having a little more loftiness, a little bit thicker. When you do some top quilting, it looks a little bit more embossed. So let me show you what we actually did. With our finished top, we fused fusible fleece to the back of that, and notice we trimmed exactly around that. That was our first step. We have our backing that we placed right side up, and notice we also trimmed a fair amount around that, so it's kind of echoing that shape. Then this is where we used our beefier pins here, and I'd already started taking some of them out. But the gauge on this is so thick and so fantastic. These patchwork, the extra fine patchwork pins, this is fine, extra fine. Let me just bring those to you so you can see the difference here. When I'm doing very fine detail work, show you one and show you the other. Look at the difference between this. When I'm doing the most delicate piecework, patchwork, strip piecing, points need to come together, I am always using my extra fine. But once I get ready to start dealing with bulkier batting, fusible fleece, could be multiple layers of even flannel, I am grabbing for a thicker gauge, longer needle. I don't want to bend my extra fine. So for that reason, we have grabbed for those thicker gauge pins, the fine, and just pin all the way around. This is our opening. You could leave a 4-inch opening, you could leave a 5-inch opening, whatever you want to do. We marked ours. Start here, backstitch. If you have a needle down function, go ahead and engage that. So when you reach the corner, stop, trim or sew all the way around. Once that's done, remove your pins. Of course, we would be bringing this to our table here to trim off the excess backing. And then we simply turn the project through the opening, definitely needing my clover point-to-point turner to get these points out. If you have any concerns about bulk in these points, in these corners, you could trim them if you wish. And then as far as completing the project, let me just bring that out so you can see that. We just came in with a blue thread and just top stitch all the way around and a few of these sections here just to hold it all together, right? Just kind of have that beautiful embossed look. So you can see that making a table topper, and a really fun table topper, colorful, celebrates our heritage. And this could be beautiful actually in a variety of fabrics. So if beyond 4th of July, you just want to be able to use that pattern, maybe your own stash or another collection at Shabby, this would be adorable in a variety of fabrics. So you can see this is a beginner-friendly project, easy to do on the first go, and these make a great gift as well. I know a lot of young couples now getting married, they really don't have handmade decor things that celebrate each season of the year and how this might be a perfect gift. So thank you for giving me a few minutes of your day. If you haven't already subscribed, do that right now and hit the bell. Why? That way when Shabby Fabrics releases a new video, you get a heads up. Hey, there's something new to learn today. Thanks again for your time. I look forward to seeing you soon on another Shabby video.